you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
This is Mindshock True Crime. You are listening to the Maura Murray series. We are on episode 33, Billy Rausch. I am your host, Bruce McGuire.
And Maxwell Powers.
And this is our longest running series, which you would have thought the case would be solved by now, but there are so many loose ends, so many rabbit holes, and a lot of them are centered around Billy Rausch. We will be diving deep into new developments, criminal proceedings, indictments, grand juries, and the history of the case as it pertains to Billy Rausch. Some people think he may have been involved. I postulate that he might actually be the good guy in all of this, but one thing is for sure, that there are a lot of unanswered questions, and he definitely knows more than he has said. Once again, if you like our podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, hit the like button, and feel free to share it across social media platforms. Like our Facebook page, you can also check us out on Twitter, Reddit, Patreon. Okay, Maxwell, where are you with the Maura Murray case? We covered the debacle that was the circus that occurred in Haverhill with the FBI present, as well as the state police, local police, where they searched this house of interest, said nothing was found. They said cadaver dogs were confused by a dead rat, and all of this other nonsense that Strelzin has expected people to swallow. What's your current stance on the case?
Oh, I still I'm okay with it. I just looked up Billy Rausch's Twitter, and he just said happy birthday tomorrow, so on May 4th. So happy birthday to her. But I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to think about the case.
Good thing you're doing a podcast on it. All right. So yeah, there's been a lot of speculation about Billy Rausch. Some people online. There have been a couple of posters that have been contacting me since the beginning of the Maura Murray series with some interesting questions and suggestions on where to look. And a number of them have suggested to look at Billy Rausch's dad, what he did, who he's involved with, connections, and there seems to be almost no information on him. Sharon Rausch has given interviews. She's been on camera giving interviews. She's been vocal throughout the history of the case, but nothing from his father. So some people believe that is quite mysterious. Apparently, both his father and mother arrived in Haverhill after Maura Murray's disappearance. So he was around. He wasn't just disappeared or stayed in Ohio. He actually was present. So once again, another avenue that there doesn't seem to be a lot to explore there. Nobody seems to be able to answer these questions. So in general, obviously the boyfriend or the husband is always the first to be looked at because statistically, that is who is responsible for the murder of a female in the majority of cases. So to not look at Billy Rausch, I think, is more strange than to look at Billy Rausch because he was obviously grilled by police. Cecil Smith didn't seem to like him. He had some choice words about Billy Rausch, not very pleasant. And other people have said not so nice things. And we're going to give Billy the benefit of the doubt in examining all of these claims, whether they're true, not true. Also, obviously, Erin Larkin has been an adamant defender of Billy, which is also kind of strange because how would she know if these allegations are true or not? It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, but there's also been speculation about Billy in relation to Julie Murray and how much both of them know because of all the strangeness at West Point and all the other strangeness in the case. And Julie stated on the Oxygen show that a rumor that had long been around online, once again, proving that to dismiss every single rumor on grounds that it is a rumor is pretty silly. Since when one doesn't know the truth, how would one know when to dismiss what? I mean, there's no reason to believe the rumor, but there's no reason to disbelieve it either, as is the case with almost everything in this case. So that Billy cheated on Maura with one of Julie's friends. This is what Julie confirmed on the Oxygen show. You remember that, right, Maxwell?
Which part?
What I just said.
Um, yeah, Billy Rausch. Yeah, I don't know what you said.
I, Julie Murray confirmed on the Oxygen show that Billy Rausch cheated on Maura with one of her own friends.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I just said that a second ago.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
What do you think about that?
Um, it was an interesting comment. Um, so he cheated on her. So what?
With one of her older sister's friends. Is that a weird dynamic or what? You don't think that factors into anything with anything?
Um, I don't know. Cheating is like a, it seems everyone seems to be doing it.
I don't know about everyone, but that wasn't the point of the question. He's cheating. It's not that he cheated on her with whoever. He cheated on her with her older sister's friend. Do you not understand the main point of my question?
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
That's a
It's
little
kind of weird.
different. Not that cheating in general is excused in any way, but doesn't it make it worse when it's your sister's friend, or you think it's irrelevant?
Yeah, it's relevant because some weird thing happened with the older sister and the Billy Rausch.
Yeah, and we don't know how much of what is either related or caused certain relationships to be the way they are. We really don't know. And so Billy went to West Point, Maura went to West Point, Julie went to West Point, and then of course Billy was assigned as a mentor to Maura. And that's all. We discussed that on the West Point episodes. If you haven't checked those out, we did Shadows of West Point 1, 2, and 3, where we discussed their time at West Point and all of that strangeness. But people also speculate that the sexual harassment issues at West Point, in another one of the countless bizarre coincidences in this case, on February 5th, 2004, Donald Rumsfeld ordered a 90-day review of sexual assault on female soldiers in the military. This just happened to be the same night that Maura had her breakdown at work. We discussed that as well, many, many times. Do you remember any of this, Maxwell?
Not really.
It's a good thing you're so passionate about this case.
I'm passionate about trying to listen and keep up, but I can't really.
You actually seem to keep up a lot better before because we had pretty extensive conversations about this. You seem to have a lot of thoughts on a lot of things in earlier episodes.
I don't know. I need repetition.
Well, how much more repetition can we do? If you had so many thoughts when there wasn't repetition, how are you gonna? I mean, now there's more
Well,
repetition
no,
than ever before.
I can think about it, but you have to repeat yourself. Like it's
The
you have
Thursday
to like
breakdown.
after you say something, and then you have to ask me, and then you have to repeat yourself because I don't remember what you said.
So, do you remember that Maura worked the security desk at the
Yeah.
dorms
Yes, I
at
do.
UMass? And
Yep.
apparently, there was either a phone call, someone could have walked by. There was a desk phone.
Yep.
If not necessarily her cell phone, the times don't add up. We already went over all of that. You remember that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm referencing. That
Okay. So, and what about it?
that happened to be the same night when Donald Rumsfeld ordered a 90-day review of sexual assault on female soldiers in the military.
Oh yeah, I think. Yeah, I think we went over that.
We did, yeah, we discussed it. So,
Yeah.
and then of course there's the mysterious Red Cross call. How Billy got military leave so quickly for a simple DUI walkaway, and his insane phone activity. And also how he went off searching alone or with Professor Bob McDonald from West Point as his only alibi all the way to Vermont and Maine. And we went over on our previous podcast on Maine a lot of those details. I've said this before, it doesn't mean he's guilty and did anything tomorrow. Because if he's the good guy and he somehow knew about law enforcement goings on or complicity or something FBI or CI related, he could have been trying to save her this whole time. But it really does seem like he knew something was up before she left. So, what do you think about that? Do you think Billy knew more than he said?
Um. Yeah.
In general. In general.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if he knew why she went up there and he knew that she was leaving before she left, that gives him time. And because of all of the frantic phone calls, which Let's do a quick summary, not just for Maxwell, but for everybody else out there. Let's go over the phone activity once more to get everything framed properly, because I guess people like Aaron and other people, they think there's nothing weird about Billy's phone activity, where so let's originally it was James Renner who shed light on this. He said Billy called Maura's phone frantically days before the disappearance, not after. Even though the cell phone was left in service for 2 years after the disappearance. So, yeah, Billy had 52 calls on the day of her disappearance, February 9th. So that's double the usual volume. He claimed from June 2003 to June 2004 that he was assigned as the executive officer to Charlie Battery, 119th Field Artillery at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Billy claims he was in the field doing artillery exercises that weekend. Also, he had different phone numbers than other calls from the rest of the month on the 8th and the 9th. So apparently these are not the usual people he calls, and those days are the unusual numbers. Another coincidence. So on the day Maura went missing, Billy has 52 cell phone calls. 26 of those calls were before, and 26, that comes out pretty even, after the time that the Saturn was found in New Hampshire. These calls were placed or received between 7:58 a.m. and 10:39 p.m. 99% of the calls made during this period were to people that Billy had not previously called, at least back to January 23rd. From what we can tell by the cell phone records, Billy was on a 34-minute call to Bob McDonald in Cornwall, New York. This call happens to start at 7 p.m. and would have ended just about 6 minutes into the 911 call by Faith Westman. Approximately 5 minutes after the end of the call with Robert McDonald, Billy calls a number in Springfield, Massachusetts to someone that has not been identified to this day. This call lasts 3 minutes. And there's some speculation online that this call was to David Whalen. Do you remember who that is, Maxwell?
Actually, I don't know.
That was the high school friend of Maura who just happened to be at that New Year's Eve party in Goshen, New Hampshire. He was the only guy there. He's the gambler. James Renner tracked him down. There was that weird interview with his mother with a bunch of conflicting information. We went over all this prior. You could go back and check out the rest of the podcast series if you haven't checked that out. I'm not going to go too deep into David Whalen now. There's some weirdness for sure, but it's not necessarily relevant. But in tracing this number, some people online did find some very, very bizarre coincidences, let's leave them that way, in tracing the history of that number that was called. And some last names which may or may not, some last names and middle names, and there's a lot of weirdness. Nothing's been confirmed. So right after this phone call to Springfield, Massachusetts, Billy called Maura. The call lasted 1 minute. Billy ends that call and immediately called a number in Lawton, Oklahoma, and talks for 6 minutes. Billy ends this call and immediately calls a number in Chesterfield, Ohio, talks for 10 minutes. Billy hangs up the phone and immediately calls voicemail. Billy then immediately calls back to the Chesterville, Ohio number and talks for 11 more minutes. Billy finishes this call and immediately calls Lawton, Oklahoma and talks for 15 minutes. Then for approximately the next 2 hours, up until 10:39 p.m., Billy is calling his voicemail, numbers in Lawton, Oklahoma, Maura, Columbus, Ohio, someone in Brighton, Michigan, someone in Mansfield, Ohio, someone in Mount Gilead, Ohio, calls Maura again and ends with a call to Lawton, Oklahoma that lasts for 1 minute. The calls that were made in the last 2 hours were mostly 1 minute calls and 1 3-minute call. On February 10th, the calls start at 5:02 a.m. and it is an incoming call, but we know it is not from Maura, at least not using her cell phone. The calls continue to add up, and this is before Billy is even notified that Maura is missing. Billy was definitely aware that there was an issue, and Maura had some intention, or he would never be calling all these people the way he was. Billy was frantic Why? So that was James Renner's initial breakdown on the phone activity, which is definitely very suspicious. Definitely very suspicious. He called his parents. He called McDonald. Something weird is going on. I mean, that's for sure. He's supposed to be in the field doing training exercises, and he's just calling all these people. What do you think?
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's all you got?
Um, he's calling all these people, looking for more or something.
Looking for Maura?
Yeah, I lost what you said.
Well, he called a bunch of them before Maura went missing.
Oh yeah, this is when he made a bunch of calls before he was. I don't know. I forget, man.
I just said he made a bunch of calls
Yeah,
before she went missing. What's there to forget or remember?
yeah. Well, I don't remember you saying that.
He made dozens and dozens of calls. That's not
Well,
usual.
what I'm saying is I remember in the past podcast that he made a lot of
Yes,
phone calls.
fine. Yeah, that's the same thing we're talking about now. Same thing.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't know that now that you said that.
Yeah,
I
but I
didn't.
just
I don't.
said that that's what I said.
I know, but I know you're telling me that you did say that, but I'm telling you there's no memory recall of you
And that's
saying that.
irrelevant because you already know the subject, so you don't need to
Uh,
recall what I just said because you already know what we're talking.
I'm just explaining to you because it seems like you're getting mad and shit. Like,
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant whether you
okay,
remembered from a
okay,
while ago
okay,
or from a second ago.
okay.
What are your thoughts about it?
Well, now, okay, one of my thoughts is kind of weird because he's making all these phone calls before Maura disappeared, and then she disappears, and then everything's all messed up, and then like he never made that so many phone calls.
Now, if you were him and you heard from her friends or whoever, you had some kind of, or her, if that phone call from Sunday morning where someone used Fred's phone to call Billy. So that's supposedly Maura, as everybody has said that that was Maura. If that was Maura, what did she tell Billy in that call? Because if Billy knows something was up, now would he make that public? So if it's something that has nothing to do with the disappearance, like if she was going to break up with him and he was going crazy, calling all these people trying to find out what's up, I get, and he believes it's not really related to the disappearance exactly. It might be related to why she left to just for the getaway, but it's not. If somebody harmed her, it doesn't even really matter why she left, right? Because they need to find who harmed her. So
Right,
in that context, if you're Billy, you wouldn't really go public and say, "Oh, she said she was going to break up with me, and I was just calling everybody because I was just going crazy." You wouldn't say that, right?
right. You wouldn't say that because
Yeah,
that
you
would
wouldn't say. Yeah,
make you a big suspect.
yeah, you wouldn't say anything. But as far as I know, nobody actually ever asked him or that he has answered on why he made all these crazy calls. I mean, it's
Because
just not explained.
it's not something you talk about or ask about because it's such a sensitive topic, and really it's not a socially acceptable thing to ask.
Yeah,
You
but
know.
what if Maura told him she has a stalker and some guy's following her and it's somebody on, let's say, UMass Police Department or a UMass cadet, and it's somebody, in a security or law enforcement position, what's she going to do about it? If she called him for help, that would get him frantic, right? He'd be calling Bob McDonald at West Point trying to figure out what to do because if this guy has an in with law enforcement, they're not going to, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I
And
get it.
if the
That's
guy
true.
has buddies, or if she became, what if she told him she was a CI and she found out that someone in UMass PD was trafficking drugs or whatever, and they're onto her?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What does he do? If you're Billy, what do you do in that situation? You can't call UMass PD and be like, "Oh, by the way, this officer's this," because either they're not going to believe you. I mean, it's a sketchy situation. What are you going
Yeah.
to do? Was Billy arranging for Maura to kind of start a new life or something? Some people believe that's, I mean, I don't know if people believe that. I think James Renner thinks that Billy might have harmed her later in the week if she escaped the crash scene. But I'm just trying to think outside the box here or just trying to make the pieces fit that don't fit. I mean, Billy's not automatically the bad guy. If he's the good guy and he's trying to help her, does that explain this flurry of phone activity?
Yeah. It's a good theory.
Because we have the Saturday night accident in Fred's Corolla. Now, supposedly there was that UMass cadet present, That cadet could have been the good guy. That cadet could have been the bad guy. We don't know. We don't know what's going on. If Maura was that agitated at the party and she didn't want to stay at the dorms and she wanted to stay with her dad at the hotel, why could that be? Why would that be? So, I mean, there's not that. I mean, how many scenarios could explain that? Either she's got some stalker and she's not a CI, or she's a CI and there's something weird happened. I mean, how many other scenarios can you think of? She's just randomly going to go drive her dad's car while possibly intoxicated or not. I mean, that's late. It's late to drive the car anyway. Not to mention the unaccounted for time between leaving the dorm and the Hadley accident. There's always these missing pieces of time that for some reason nobody discusses. We don't know what happened in that time. She could have went somewhere else. Something else could have happened with people we don't know about. There's so many missing pieces here that we don't have, and we're trying to put it together. It's very problematic. So, tracing Billy's activity once again, so back to Renner's blog, Rausch has spent and he's quoting news sources here. Rausch has spent the past few days driving across both New Hampshire and Vermont, stopping at local gas stations, bus stations, and police headquarters. Yesterday morning, Rausch and his father were told that Murray might have been seen at a McDonald's in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. They drove there, but no one had seen her. Once again, we had covered all these sightings in episode 6. Another article mentions Billy and the group canvassing a 50-mile radius of Woodsville with posters. Maura Murray disappeared on Monday, February 9th, 2004. When Bill arrived in New Hampshire on Wednesday night, his cell phone went on roaming. The roaming charges are at the end of each individual bill and listed by location. This gives us a rough look into where he was traveling as they searched for Maura. Below are those rough locations by date. So Wednesday, February 11th, 4:55, Rutland, Vermont. 7:02, Burlington, Vermont. Thursday, February 12th, 10 a.m. to noon, Lebanon, New Hampshire. 3:24, Streaked Mountain, Maine. 4 p.m. to 4:20, Concord, New Hampshire. 4:40 to 5:30, Lebanon, New Hampshire. Friday, February 13th, 10:30, Rutland, Vermont. 10:40, Burlington, Vermont. Saturday, February 14th, no calls. Sunday, February 15th, 4 p.m., Concord, New Hampshire. 4:53 p.m., Lebanon, New Hampshire, to Maura's phone. So we've discussed this pretty extensively as well, and this is still unresolved. The 3 to 4 minute phone call on Sunday. Did Billy talk to Maura? Why is the roaming page of the phone record missing? Then he doesn't make a single phone call until Thursday, 4 days later. Not to check in with voicemail, not to check in with the Murrays, not to check in with police, not to check in with hospitals, not to check in with anyone, Maura's friends, whoever. What happened? So after this time period searching for Maura, he doesn't speak about her again or gets involved in the case in any way. So Maxwell, just a quick recap on that. We've discussed this pretty extensively as well. Does that strike you as suspicious that all of a sudden he's not calling anybody anymore?
When was that not calling event happen?
Okay.
Like what times? When does that start?
Maura goes missing on Monday.
Yeah.
Billy arrives Wednesday. You following?
Yeah. So 2 days she stopped calling people.
No, wait. He arrives on Wednesday. She goes missing Monday.
Yeah.
He arrives Wednesday. He calls people like crazy Thursday, Friday. No calls on Saturday, but a couple calls Sunday. Sunday 4:53. So 6 days after she goes missing is the last phone activity is Tamara's phone. Unless there's missing pages from the bill or the bill is doctored. There's a whole bunch of weirdness with the bill. We're not going to go into that here. But if this record is as is, if this record is legitimate, then he doesn't make any phone calls Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, nothing until Thursday. So he doesn't make a single phone call. Like his girlfriend is missing. He's looking for her. He just completely doesn't do anything with his phone for 4 days.
Yeah. I
I
don't know.
mean,
Maybe he's, I don't know. Maybe he just got burnt out.
that
He just
seems
got
to be
burnt.
Saturday. He got burnt out, needed to. But I mean, would you really get burned out after just a couple days? I mean, it's not like he searched for a month straight and then took 4 days. Like, we're talking a couple days here.
Yeah.
And he's a young guy too. We're not talking. I mean, if he was super old or had like a medical condition, I mean, he's in the military, man. What do you mean he got burned out?
I don't know. Just guessing.
Even if you're burned out, you're gonna sit and do not like you're not gonna do anything all day. You could still take a minute to check in with people. Like you could make a couple. You could take 5 minutes out of your burnt out, relaxed day to make a couple calls and check in with people.
Yeah.
But we're talking no calls 4 days in a row.
Hmm.
4 whole days and nights. I don't think the burned out theory holds water.
Oh man, that's
Maybe
funny.
for a day. Maybe for a day. But we're 4 straight days? Doesn't he want to know what happened to Maura? They could have found her and he wouldn't have known about it because he didn't check in with anybody.
Yeah.
Unless he knew for sure they wouldn't find her. And that could go two ways. That could be because he's the bad guy, or that could be because he's the good guy and he helped her get away. If they did somehow track her down, find her, and helped her get away. So, yeah, we've talked about this, and Renner has also speculated that Billy might have even met up with Maura and harmed her that Sunday or whenever after the final call to her phone. And like I've said, if he's the good guy, helped her escape, or if she was kidnapped and the kidnapper only wanted to deal with Billy. So here's a theory that hasn't really, I've been kind of mulling around this theory to see if it would connect these dots. What if she was kidnapped at UMass? And that's why everyone was keeping quiet, because they were scared the kidnapper would harm Maura. So that's why the friends weren't saying anything, possibly not even to Fred, because if they're afraid he would tell the police and something would happen to Maura, then it would be their fault, right? Because they spilled the beans. So if
Nice.
somehow if the kidnapper got in touch with Billy, told him not to say anything to the police or anybody, and maybe one of the friends knew, like either Kate or Sarah, and they really are Maura's friend, and they didn't want her to get hurt, and they didn't want it to be their fault if they told the police and then the kidnapper killed Maura. That would be their fault because they told the police.
Okay.
What do you think? You think that theory could work or no?
It could definitely work. Um, yeah. I I don't know. We gotta bring out everything, right?
So here's the thing where I think it might not work because it explains the silence back then and even maybe for a year or even two. But what about now? Are they still going to keep silent now after all these years? Because, like, do they really think the kidnapper is holding her in the base? I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I mean, at what point do you stop? Because I mean, there's kind of a cost benefit analysis that needs to go on. If she was kidnapped on Sunday, even maybe she never even made it up to New Hampshire. I don't know. If she was kidnapped Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever, maybe she escaped the scene, got kidnapped a week later or a couple days later. Whatever the case is, whatever it is, I mean, what if the kidnapper told Billy to go to a certain location and then there was a burner phone left for him? So then he was using the burner phone instead of his own phone to try to get Maura back. I mean, you're probably going to say that's a good idea for a movie, but because then that wouldn't be on his main bill. But I mean, it's all speculation, obviously, but at what point, so either he found her or didn't find her, at what point do people spill I mean, how many years are you going to hold on to the secret before you go to the police? Because unless you knew for sure she was still being, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Like, at what point do you stop staying silent?
When there's no longer a threat to your life, I guess.
Well, I don't know if the threat was ever to their lives. It was to Maura's life.
Oh
Because if
yeah,
the
tomorrow's life.
but the kidnapper would want something, right? He would demand some kind of rant. I mean, I don't know, but
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah.
I just threw that out there because it kind of sort of makes sense why people might be quiet at that time and all of the weird phone activity. I don't know. But it doesn't
Oh,
seem
so you're going with that too because everyone's quiet. Shit.
yeah,
Alright.
it seems like it could possibly work back then. But after X amount of time, not even a year, after a couple months, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know. It seems like they wouldn't stay quiet forever. But either way, if Billy was somehow trying to get her back and didn't tell anyone else other than his parents and McDonald, because if he really trusts McDonald and that McDonald wouldn't go to the police, like it would kind of make sense that he would want to contact an older mentor who has life experience, maybe even has connections in the military or whatnot, and ask them for advice, right? Because Billy's a young kid at this time. It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy to think about because what if Kate or Sarah knew that Maura went missing or Maura was kidnapped and there was some kind of demand for Billy for whatever reason? Maybe this was connected to West Point. We don't know. But I'm just trying to kind of fit some of these puzzle pieces together because none of this makes any sense. Even that doesn't necessarily seem to pan out in the long term. But for the initial reaction of everybody, it might possibly work. I don't know. It would also be curious to get Billy's cell phone records for the 2 years Maura's phone was left in service, just to see if he ever called it again. What do you think, Maxwell? Like, if someone you love goes missing, or even even people. I mean, that's traumatic. Even people who have had people pass away, they know they're dead. They still text their phone. They still leave a voicemail just for some kind of a closure or comfort. If he never ever called her phone ever again, because he knew it was left in service, because Fred kept it in service just in case because the phone's never been found. So just in case she found a charger or whatever, she would be able to make a call, or if she ran away, started a new life, whatever, she would still have that phone in service. If Billy never even tried to call it ever again, what would you think of it? Do you find that strange or what?
Yeah, I would find it strange especially if they were really close. I mean, you would call for like 6 months straight.
Would you take 4 days off and not call again in a time period where she might still be alive?
Yeah, I would go like 10 times a day for like a month, and then
At least,
and
right? At least.
yeah, at least
Yeah.
like 10, 20 times a day for that
Yeah.
first month, and then 3 times a day for 2 to 6 months, and then
Yeah.
at least twice
Yeah.
a day for
It's
another
weird.
year,
It's
and then
weird.
once a day for next year, and then one call every other day that next 2 to 3 years.
Oh, you got it already all planned out. You got your schedule.
Yeah, and then maybe like once a week for 5 to 10 years.
What about after 20 years?
Um, Maybe once a year or something.
Okay. All right. So here's something that we might not have discussed extensively. So this is an interesting post by Renner in regards to Billy's military work. He posted this on October 3rd, 2016. Records show that Bill Rausch was part of an elite military propaganda unit. The truth about the Information Operations Task Force came to light in 2005 when journalists discovered that American soldiers were writing propaganda in support of the unjustified war in Iraq and funneling it through private groups, which then helped to place the articles in foreign newspapers. As the Los Angeles Times put it, as part of an information offensive in Iraq, the U.S. military is secretly paying Iraqi newspapers to publish stories written by American troops in an effort to burnish the image of the U.S. mission in Iraq. On his Rally Point page, Rausch is listed as working for the IOTF in 2006. Prior to this, Rausch was stationed at Fort Troughton as part of the 301st Battalion, part of the 151st Theater Information Operations Group, which was tasked with synchronizing related capabilities comprised of 5 core functions: electronic warfare, military deception, psychological operations, operational security, and computer network operations. Psychological operations is known as PSYOPs in the field. PSYOPs create spin to influence, disrupt, corrupt, or usurp adversarial human and automated decision making while protecting our own. In the past, they have attempted to infiltrate American media as well, most notably getting caught at CNN and NPR. This case is just beyond crazy with the rabbit holes here. So James Renner put this information out there. So we're not even going to go into the Washington, D.C. insanity regarding Aaron Larkin, Julie Murray, Bill Rausch, the D.C. work circles, the IP activity that always seems to be present around Maura Murray forums or message boards that goes back to the D.C. area. There is so much weirdness regarding Washington, D.C. in this case and people connected to this case. But even without that, let's just look at Billy's work history. So this is a guy that worked in psychological operations and propaganda campaigns. What do you think about that, Maxwell?
Yeah, it's crazy that he worked in that area. It's weird.
You think there's any relevance at all to Maura Murray's disappearance, or if there were other agencies involved? We've discussed this a couple of times too. If there was some kind of a stand down issued, if Maura got involved in something that had nothing to do with her, it would be pretty crazy if she was a CI and she did uncover something about UMass police or maybe Amherst police or some kind of weird drug ring involving police complicity. And unrelated to that, she also happened to stumble into some kind of FBI, DEA, CIA type operation that night in Haverhill. That'd be pretty crazy, right?
Yeah,
But
it's weird. It's weird that it's actually like an official thing on his record, right? Like
yes,
you said that he like that's so weird. That's the title of that thing is like propaganda fucking unit and shit like that.
well, he said that he worked for the IOTF, the Information Operations Task Force. And so
Oh,
later,
that's pretty. Yeah. Okay, I get it. It's
That's
like
all
it's
he put.
still
That's all he put. But newspapers reported that what they did was propaganda, psyops, all these things.
yeah. That's some sick shit, dude.
Yeah. Yep. It's pretty bizarre. I mean, it's possible. I mean, people have been get struck by lightning twice, 3 times, 10 times. However, the world record guy is 17 times, 20 something, whatever it was.
But in his like personal this Maura Murray thing, he never really did proactively use those skills.
That's
Well, unless one of those skills was to keep quiet. I don't know.
Well, no, you bring up an interesting point because he also worked for the Obama campaign. Like he's dialed in Washington D.C. circles, and some of the criticisms of Billy Rausch is that he never used his platform to advocate for Maura Murray. Like it just never gets brought up. Like he's done interviews on TV. He does veteran work. He was a public figure for some time.
Wait. Why would he bring it up?
Well, what do you mean?
Um, I don't know, because like these are professional encounters. I don't know. I know, and it's kind of weird because like I guess he should be mourning.
I'm not saying he should have brought it up on an interview for something else. I'm saying as a public figure, he could make, he can make a tweet. He could he could just put out his own video for missing persons, cold case, like, I'm not saying 20 years, X amount of years after the fact, but for years he said he's been quiet as a mouse until this past year when he came out on Twitter against James Renner.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know that whole debacle with James Renner.
It's irrelevant. The point here is he was basically a public figure, and he never really like on the more anniversaries. He could have just made public announcements. By the way, like my girlfriend went missing. This is awareness to the case. If you have any information, go to the cold case unit. He never did any of that ever, as far as we know.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not saying he should have randomly brought it up in interviews or he's done work. I'm not saying that. I'm saying separate from that, he could have used his position because even people that don't have that position, they still on anniversary for anyone that will listen, they'll go to newspapers, they'll do whatever. And he didn't seem really all that interested.
I see.
All right, so let's get into the history of abuse claims. So Renner really he seems to really be going after Billy and making a lot of claims here. We're going to examine them for veracity because we don't know if they're true or not. So Billy could be the good guy once again, and people make stuff up about good people. Also, people make stuff up about bad people. Billy could be the bad guy, and these allegations could also be false. We don't really know. Billy could have, if Billy did something to Maura, these allegations could be false, or he didn't do anything and they're false, or he didn't do anything to Maura and the allegations are true. We're not going to fall for any fallacies here, but okay. So Renner managed to get one interview with Hussein Baghdadi, known as Haas, the assistant track coach who Maura had a relationship with spring through summer 2003. So, just real quick, when I interviewed Haas years ago, he told me a few interesting things about Maura. She never once mentioned her father, he said. With Haas, she never mentioned her father. I never knew her father was even alive, he says. They talked about taking a vacation to the White Mountains so she could hike and he could go fly fishing. Alone with Haas, Maura referred to Billy as an ex. According to Haas, Bill Rausch was very controlling and Maura wanted to get away from him. There were hints that he got physical with her, he told me. She felt she couldn't get away from him. He seemed very chauvinistic, says Haas. He wanted her to be in certain places at certain times. He'd check up on her. He was very demanding. He also got the impression from Maura that Billy could be physical. She felt she couldn't really get away from him. Haas is not the only one who told me Bill could be physical with the women in his life. Haas said she sometimes fantasized about disappearing and starting a new life. I wish I could disappear, she told him. He always thought she'd choose Mexico. After Maura went missing, detectives visited Haas and he shared what he knew with them. One of the things he shared was a conversation he says he had with Maura when they were alone one day. She talked about running away, she said. I wish I could disappear. When I heard she was missing, I thought, holy crap, maybe she did it. Haas also said about Maura, she was super energetic, always seemed happy, but she was sad too underneath. I've left messages for Haas. He has not returned my calls or emails. I will tell you this much. After speaking to Haas, I think he was the only one who was totally honest with me in my years of research. Okay, so the other thing, Renner also interviewed a fellow track member of Maura's. One stated Haas was great. He was an incredible runner. He was in incredible shape. He had a big crush on her, so we tried to hook her up. Let's just say we weren't big fans of Billy. So, doesn't look too good for Billy. But another thing, I think we've talked about this before. Just hypothetically, if Haas had something to do with Maura, if he harmed Maura, he would be trying to paint Billy in a bad light, right?
Yeah.
Or simultaneously saying she ran away to start a new life so nobody would be looking at him too closely if he dropped this information.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what we got there. What do you think so far about the allegations against Billy?
Mm, I don't know.
The one thing that always got me a little bit is that Fred seemed to really like Billy. He called him the salt of the earth.
Huh.
So I think, I mean, I don't know. Doesn't the father's usually pretty critical of his daughter's boyfriend. So
Yeah.
unless Billy was being trained in psychological warfare and it was using some of these techniques on people to be controlling and trick them. But I don't think he would have started learning that early, because if that was still West Point, unless he was being fast tracked in some top secret program. But all right, so James Renner's blog, August 11th, 2017. Bill Rausch was accused of pushing a woman in a DC metro station. I'm just now reading about the arrest of Eric Belquist, who police believe pushed a woman toward a bus while jogging on a London bridge. It's a curious case and by all accounts unprovoked, but by no means an isolated incident. Why do some men do this? This article from The Independent talks about the odd assaults and includes a similar incident that happened to the author, who says the man who pushed her was full of rage. As I first reported in 2016, Bill Rausch was accused of a similar assault in D.C. Rausch was Maura Murray's boyfriend at the time of her disappearance, and he has a pretty solid alibi for the day she disappeared. Evidence suggests he was at Fort Sill, half a country away. Rausch left his office job at Ray Group International in D.C. after women in the office came forward with claims that he assaulted a female coworker in the president's office after a night of drinking. Prior to that, the alleged victim claimed Rausch pushed her down the stairs in a metro station. When confronted at the office, he said it wasn't him. But during the night of the second assault, according to her, he brought up the incident and said it was him at the metro station. Like much of this confounding case, I don't know what to make of this behavior. That's pretty weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
Someone accused Billy Rausch of pushing them down the stairs. This was a coworker of his. Said that he pushed them down the stairs at a metro station, then confronted him in the office. He said it wasn't him, but then after a night of drinking, then he brought it up and said it was him. You got nothing.
I didn't know he confessed on that, because I thought he always denied it until some girl sued her or some shit, or sued him, and
Okay,
then
you're not following at all. He always denies everything. The victim, the alleged victim, confronted him in the office.
oh yeah, I remember
This is
this.
a
Because I
second. This is a second-hand account. Okay, so this I'm saying this for like the third or fourth time. She said that she confronted him about it. This is her story. He said it wasn't him. Then apparently he assaulted her in the office and said it was him.
oh yeah, I remember now. Yeah,
Billy never told anyone else on official record that it was him. This is an account from
oh
this
yeah,
woman. Okay,
yeah.
so she's saying
I
that he
remember now.
admitted it. He admitted it to her
Yeah.
during the second assault. So she got assaulted twice by
So
him.
so it's her word against him and shit.
Yeah, but what do you think about that in general? Like, if it's just kind
It's
of
kind of
it's weird. The whole story is weird.
yeah, it's kind of crazy. Well, to have anyone come out like that about him, it's kind of makes him suspicious as far as his character, you know. I
And
mean,
there's
it's not. I don't know. It's just too. Something weird happened there.
well, there's also plenty more people. So we're gonna get into all these accounts, but let me postulate this. Let's say someone else pushed her, but he was there, and she just thought it was him because she saw his face in the crowd, and she just doesn't like him.
That could also be true.
And then she made up the
But he did well. But she said that he did admit, like, so it's hearsay that he did
yeah,
admit
but
into.
but hold on a second. Let me finish. Then in the office, let's say they were drunk and he really did assault her there, but he didn't push her in the metro station. So, and then
That's true.
and then she made up the part where he said he did push her just to add fuel to the fire, but he really did assault
Yeah,
her because he was drunk.
yeah,
Or she made up the whole thing. I don't necessarily think we need to fall for black and white fallacies here either. I don't think we have to go, oh, she made the whole thing up or she didn't. I don't know. I'm saying there could be gray area here. Okay, so September 29th, 2017, he posted this. Another woman comes forward with allegations about Bill Rausch's alarming behavior. If you've seen the trailer for tomorrow's episode of The Disappearance of Maura Murray, there's a clip of me saying I believe Maura ran away from the men in her life. But what was so bad that she'd run away? Was she really that afraid of someone? At the time of her disappearance, she was dating Bill Rausch. Rausch has a good alibi. He said he was in the field at Fort Sill where he was stationed, though he was apparently able to make many cell phone calls while training newbies. So he was supposed to be training others while on the phone. I don't know. My first impression of Bill was a very likable guy. We talked at length on the phone one day and he seemed genuine. But since then, several women have come forward claiming there is another side to him he doesn't show to men. Around St. Patrick's Day 2011, Bill is alleged to have sexually assaulted a coworker in the office of the president of Ray Group International, a DC firm. There was an internal investigation and he was never able to return to work in the office. The woman who claims he assaulted her also claims Bill pushed her down the stairs at a metro station and pretended it wasn't him. I have spoken to high school girlfriends whom he called the day Maura disappeared, and I was told Bill had a reputation even before he met Maura of being rough with women. Yesterday, I was contacted by another woman who witnessed a darker side of Bill. I have chosen to take down the details of this encounter, but reserve the right to repost in the future. Either it's important to the case, in which case the police should have time to investigate, or it's a personal encounter that further supports what the women from Ray Group have already said. I encourage any other person with info about Bill or anyone else involved in the case to take this opportunity to come forward and share what they know with law enforcement. So there was an internal investigation at Ray Group International, and they either found him guilty and fired him, or he left for whatever reason, or there was no evidence, but they didn't want the scandal, so they thought it was easier just to get rid of him. So again, doesn't mean necessarily he was guilty. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, it doesn't mean he's guilty.
Yeah. All right, November 7th, 2017. I would help you bury a body. We talked about this before. Today, I spoke with a former employee of Ray Group International, the company Bill worked for in 2011 when he allegedly sexually assaulted a woman in the office. This man has asked to remain anonymous but will speak to New Hampshire police. He said at the time Bill seemed to be in a very dark place and would go drinking practically every night after work at a place called The Bottom Line. His favorite drink, gin and tonic. This coworker got to know him well and considered him a friend. One day after some drinks, he says Billy turned to him and said, "We're good friends, aren't we? Like best friends?" He said, "Sure." Then he claims Bill said, "I would help you bury a body. Really, I'd help you bury a body. That's how good of friends we are." I took it as a sincere moment, this man says. At the time, I brushed it off because he'd been in the military. I'd figured he'd seen casualties. He says another time Bill told him how he'd go on the news to talk about Maura so that he could use it to pick up women, that he could play the depressed former boyfriend part, and it worked very well. He was there the day Bill was forced to resign his job at Ray Group after a woman said he sexually assaulted her in the office. They allowed him to resign instead of being fired. The executives agreed that they would leave it up to the woman to go to the police. This woman can still go to the police, actually, as the statute of limitation is not expired. I believe she is currently weighing that option. In a related note, I just received a massive amount of information and names through a GlobalLeaks contact. There are more women with claims against Bill. All right, so if a guy's super drunk and he's saying, "I'd help you bury a body, we're good friends," I mean, I don't know, how much stock do you put in that? I don't know if I put a lot of stock in that.
I wouldn't. That's kind of like a grim or how should I say morbid affectionate expression. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't put a lot of stock in that because, I mean, drunk person saying anything is not very specific. There are other incidents with Billy we'll get to that I think are a little bit more damning than these. But okay. November 14th, 2017. Sexual harassment claims against Bill Rausch continued at IAVA, says former employees. After Bill Rausch was forced to resign at Ray Group following allegations of a sexual assault in 2011, he moved to the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America nonprofit. Once there, according to coworkers, the improper and alarming behavior continued. Two sources describe a night in the winter of 2015 where Rausch led a small group of coworkers to the bar after work. Once there, he ordered oysters and champagne and picked up the tab for the expensive dinner. This is very reminiscent of the stories of a former girlfriend from Fort Sill. Tells of how he and his friends would slum the area bars, flashing cash to pick up women. During this dinner in 2015, there was Bill, another man, and two women who worked with them. One was a director level employee, the other was the assistant to the IAVA's CEO, Paul Rykoff. Midway through the night, the other man realized that Bill was texting both women, trying to pick them up. The other director eventually shut him down. He was married, she was not interested. From there, a couple of them went to a karaoke bar and had more drinks without Bill. Still, the texts continued. At the end of the night, the other man walked the assistant back to her hotel. Bill was there already waiting for her to return. According to these sources, he was very aggressive and manic, asking to be let into her room. One witness describes it becoming an argument in the street. In the following weeks and months, Bill allegedly asked his coworker to not tell anybody what happened that night. Why is this important enough to warrant a post on this blog? At the very least, this is another story that shows a pattern of behavior by Bill Rausch against women, especially women he has some power over, and gives context and reason for Maura wanting to run away. But also, I strongly believe Maura was traveling with a tandem driver the night she went missing and possibly even made it to her destination, a cabin in the woods. If she did, everybody's alibi on February 9th is worthless. Bill maintains his innocence. Through his lawyer today, he claims there is no truth to any of these claims. Each of these women must be lying. What do you think, Maxwell?
I don't know. They could be lying.
So, what would the motivations be for all of these women to lie separately?
No motivation. Just chilling.
So, you think they're just randomly lying about Bill Rausch, not knowing that there's other women who also said these things? Kind of
Yeah,
like just random.
something like that.
So there's just random incidents of people lying. Because if what Renner is saying is true, these other men that were with him corroborated this story.
Huh. That's cool.
That's all you got? That's cool.
So, all right. So, these girls are saying this story, and then they kind of like relate, and they're like they don't know each other, and it's kind of coming together as like one consistent thing.
I mean, I suppose it's theoretically possible. I suppose it's theoretically possible if someone that had it out for Billy Rausch, for whatever reason, maybe it has nothing to do with Maura. Someone could have theoretically paid these women to say this, right? Which is why they wouldn't go to the police, because if they're just collecting a paycheck to trash Billy Rausch and they don't have to be legally responsible for their words, right? Like, let's
Yeah,
say
I got you. I
theoretically,
got you. I got you. That's possible.
and even the men too that corroborated this story, or even the guy that said, "I'll help you bury," that Billy told him he'd help him bury a body. I mean, if a drunk guy says that, I mean, is that really? He may or may not have said that. The guy comes forward. If Billy, see, Billy's involved in the military. He's involved in these top secret psyops and operations. Who knows who he pissed off? If he pissed off somebody else, possibly also in the military, someone with deep pockets or not that deep, and they decided to pay these people off because they wanted to make Bill's life miserable, or I mean, maybe it has nothing to do with his military career. What if Billy just happened to what if he had an affair with somebody at one point and it was the wife of or girlfriend of some powerful individual that just wants to get Bill fired from every single job because of that? Is that possible, or is that too much like a weird psychological thriller movie?
Yeah.
And this person also knows about Mora, so he's sending James Renner all these things and paying off these people to say these things. I'm not saying this is true in any way. I'm just trying to look at it from multiple angles where Billy could also theoretically be a good guy.
Yeah. Covering all the bases.
You think that's too outlandish, or do you think that's within the realm of possibility?
So far, everything is in the realm of possibility, but I mean, it's kind of it would be mind shocking if they were true.
All right, let's move on. So, January 8th, 2018, Maura Murray's boyfriend, Bill Rausch, has a scheduled interview with a defense attorney in Arlington today who handles cases of sex assault. Is he anticipating charges? The lawyer's office accidentally called me thinking it was Rausch's number. Whoops. He commented this as well. It's possible the disappearance is unrelated to her ultimate fate. We should be looking at his actions in the days following. So once again, James Renner is alleging that Bill Rausch might have met up with Maura or found Maura days after her disappearance if she got away. But hold on a second. So this is kind of weird. So a defense attorney accidentally called James Renner, didn't verify who he was speaking to, and just violated attorney-client privilege, tipping him off to this information. That's kind of weird, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Once again, that points to somebody having it out for Billy Rausch, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or if his attorney thinks he's guilty, or I don't know, somebody else trying to whistleblow him somehow. I don't know. Monday, April 2nd, 2018. Phone records suggest Bill Rausch knew Maura left UMass on the 9th. I must have looked through Bill and Maura's cell phone bills 100 times, but yesterday a Redditor noticed something I never saw. Here's what Ash the Red had to say. After having a look at Bill's phone records, I noticed something which seems strange to me. Although I'm not sure if what I have noticed is accurate, and so would appreciate it if someone with more knowledge could correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry if this gets confusing, but bear with me. On February 8th at 2:49 p.m., Bill makes a 2-minute call to Maura, which I presume was him leaving Maura a message as her phone was off at the time. Then, 1 minute later, he calls another Amherst number. I am presuming this is Maura's dorm room. Then, on the same day at 4:47 and 5:45, he calls Maura's mobile again, which both go unanswered. And then his next call is to that same number again, which surely is Maura's dorm. It would make sense to try to call Maura's mobile. If she doesn't answer, then try her dorm. So if I'm correct, then Bill, on the day before Maura disappears, twice tries to contact her at her dorm room after she has failed to answer her mobile. Then, on February 9th, after Maura's last ever call to Bill at 2:18 p.m., where they don't actually talk, but Maura may have left a short message, Bill calls Maura another 8 times before around 5 p.m. on the 10th, which would roughly be when Bill was told she was missing. And not once does he try her on her dorm room. This surely suggests that he must know she is not at UMass. Otherwise, surely he would have tried her dorm phone again, just like he did on the 8th twice. Maybe I have got this wrong, and if so, I will be very grateful if somebody could correct me. But if not, then I'm sure this looks like Bill knew she was going somewhere before everyone else did. Bill doesn't like to be ignored. On February 8th and 9th, he's calling Maura's cell phone and dorm trying to get her to talk to him. When he can't reach her, he calls Kate Markopoulos on her cell phone and also Kate's dorm room. You know, another interesting thing that people kind of point out is he has Kate's cell phone, which isn't that strange. I mean, a boyfriend might have his girlfriend's phone numbers, but he also has Kate's dorm room number. Is that a little strange, Maxwell?
That someone got his dorm room key. Is that what you said?
No, that's not what I said.
Wait, what'd you say? Something about dorm room?
I said Bill Rausch has Kate Markopoulos' cell phone. When he can't get in touch with Maura, he calls Kate Markopoulos' cell phone. He also calls her dorm room. So if your girlfriend in college has certain friends, whatever, which by the way, Kate said that supposedly they weren't that close friends with Maura, and yet Maura's boyfriend has her cell phone. I mean, I don't know. I would think that would be one of her main friends if he has her phone a cell phone number. But when he couldn't, he also called Kate Markopoulos' dorm room number. Would you have, so if your girlfriend is at a college, you might have her friend's cell number. Would you have her friend's dorm room phone number?
Possibly not, but you could probably like get connected or like ask the operator or some shit. Like, I don't know. Is that, or maybe not? I don't know. That's a privacy issue too.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I don't know. So Maura doesn't want to talk and sends him an email text saying so. That doesn't work for him though, so he calls Maura's cell again 3 times in 3 minutes, but she doesn't pick up. By all accounts, Bill is acting manic on February 9th as Maura is ignoring him. He makes a total of 52 calls that day from his cell phone while he's in the field at Fort Sill and after. Calls to ex-girlfriends, mentors from West Point, and family. He's reaching out. Later that night, he tries to get Maura to talk to him again, but he doesn't try her dorm again. When he can't reach her in the morning, does he try her dorm room? Nope. It's a break in character for him. When she didn't answer on Sunday, he's trying her cell, her dorm, her friend's dorm, and her friend's cell phone. But on Tuesday, he doesn't try Maura on her dorm, even though by all accounts, he doesn't learn that she's missing from UMass until around 5 p.m. that evening when the Murray family calls him. In fact, after the Murrays call him to say Maura's missing, he doesn't call her cell phone either. He doesn't try to call her, even though she's missing for 2 hours. His first thought isn't to immediately try to get his girlfriend to pick up, but to call the operator inquiring about hotels in New Hampshire. This makes no sense to me. Does it make any sense to you? What do you think, Maxwell?
Yeah, makes no sense.
If your girlfriend was reported missing, would you immediately call her cell phone, her dorm, her friends, or would you call for hotels in the area she went missing immediately?
Um,
I don't know.
just cell phone.
I mean, you could do both. You could do both, like right, but yeah, it's very bizarre. The other thing we don't know
Oh
if
yeah, back then, like it was. I forgot like how the cell phones are. For some reason, I thought iPhones for a second, but it's like freaking flip phone, like the. I actually even yeah, flip phone, like the Motorola and shit like that.
yeah, I mean, most people, but also just that old Nokia or Ericsson, whatever those old
Yeah,
with the big
yeah.
buttons. But you could text with it, you could call with it, and yeah, he doesn't. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. We also don't know what Kate told him if he talked to her, or whoever else he talked to. What did they tell him? We don't know. We don't know because neither one of them's talking. Okay. In light of the allegations against Bill Rausch by multiple women of sex assault and harassment in D.C., I think everyone close to the investigation should sit down and go over timelines of the days following Maura's disappearance. That's what Renner is saying. An update. Another Redditor noticed that after Bill learns Maura's missing, he calls Kate Markopoulos' dorm for 6 minutes. So he talked to Kate Markopoulos or someone who picked up in that dorm room. You know what's really crazy that I'm not sure we've talked about extensively? What if Maura was still at UMass and her car went up, but Maura wasn't in danger or harmed or anything? She was just hanging out at the dorm when she was supposed to be missing. Or do you think that's too crazy? What if Maura picked up on Kate Markopoulos' dorm after she was missing? And Billy talked to her because he knew she was there somehow.
Hmm.
Or he just talked to Kate Markopoulos and she told him something. So he didn't call Maura, but he calls Kate Markopoulos' dorm. He doesn't call Maura or Maura's dorm. He calls Kate Markopoulos' dorm room. And the phone call lasts 6 minutes. Any thoughts, Maxwell?
No thoughts.
Is that your new mug?
Yeah.
All right, November 29th, 2018. I'm going to kill you like I killed Maura. So we discussed this one before, but I will read it again. 5 women, this is once again James Renner's blog. 5 women have come forward to ask police to investigate Bill Rausch and what role his actions may have played in the fate of Maura Murray. Here are their stories. Lawton, Oklahoma, 2004. 2 weeks ago, I was contacted by a woman who lived in Lawton, Oklahoma in 2004. She knew Bill a few months after Maura Murray disappeared in 2004. He visited the people who lived in her house often, as some had ties to Fort Sill, where Bill was working at the time. He was friends with the man she was seeing at the time, who warned her that Bill had, quote, had gone off the deep end quote, and that his girlfriend was missing. One day, Bill found out that her guy was not home for a while and he texted her, asked if he could come over. There was a party at the house that night, and so she didn't see the harm. Once he arrived, though, he took her outside, grabbed her, and started kissing her. He suggested they go to a hotel. She agreed and went with him in the car. At a stoplight, she says, Bill reached over and grabbed her by the neck and said, I'm going to kill you like I killed Maura. She reached over and dug her nails into him. I'll rip your crotch off, she said. Immediately, Bill's demeanor changed and he became gentle again. He said he was just joking around and they continued on to the hotel. However, at the hotel, she decided not to have sex. Later, she says, Bill explained that he was glad she never slept with him because, quote, the only people I care about that I have sex with die, end quote. That's kind of weird. Do you remember Bill's other ex girlfriend who apparently died in some horseback riding accident and there's almost no information about that?
No, I don't remember that, but no, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Uh, but this whole interaction here, this girl that's reporting this, uh, when did she report that? or like
So
how
he's
far?
stating 2 weeks ago I was contacted by a woman. So he posted this November 29th, 2018, but I'm not sure if he's reposting this from earlier. So this was well after the fact that she reported this. She contacted him. This is what James Renner said.
That whole interaction, like when I'm trying to imagine it, it it's weird. Like sometimes people can have this sense of this sixth sense of humor, but it's like at the moment you're actually pretty funny because you'll say something sick because it's kind of you have so much rapport with the other person. But I mean, I'm trying to gather whether this reporting of this girl is that she's traumatized by the whole situation, or it's because she doesn't seem traumatized by the whole thing. I mean, she was joking around with her and then went to the hotel or some shit
I
like that.
don't see it. I don't see it as joking around at all. This is one of the most bizarre stories I've ever heard. So it's either not true. If it is true, it's insane. So he's nice.
I
They kiss. Let's go to hotel. She agrees. So they're driving to the hotel. At a stoplight, he just randomly
well, well,
grabs
I
her by
guess
the neck and says, "I'm gonna kill you like I killed Maura."
um, it's weird. It's like something like you say like to push the envelope on your craziness.
I don't think
But
even a psychopath. I don't see them ever saying that in that context. In that situation, even a crazy psycho, I don't see them ever doing something like that. But
I don't
apparently,
know. I can see it because I've seen like all right. I'm referring to movies, but like I don't know, movies kind of like relate to like real life and shit. But like you'll see these scenes where a guy would joke around like what he just said, like well, I'm glad you didn't sleep with me because everyone that I've had sex with ends up dead or
oh
some
no, no,
shit.
no, hold on. We're talking about two different things. Okay, I can see that one. Let's forget about that one.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
because that one's like really
no, forget that one. We're
okay.
specifically talking about they're driving to a hotel. At a stoplight, he just randomly reaches over, grabs her by the neck, and says, "I'm gonna kill you like I killed Mora."
Is that wait? This is not the same girl.
Same girl.
Oh, now that's prior to the that I'm glad you didn't sleep with me.
How do you remember something I said once and you don't remember something that was repeated 5 times?
Wait, so well, tell me, was it before or after?
It was before. Afterwards. Afterwards, at the hotel, she decided not to have sex. Later, she
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
Bill
So
explained.
the car happened first before the
Yes,
hotel.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like I think when he did that, it was kind of like pushing the eroticism because they're feeling it. So he fucking goes like bang, like trying to be like alpha male dominant and shit, trying to fuck her brains out, and then
No,
she
he
gets
said he's
turned
gonna.
on.
No, no,
Oh,
no, no. He said he's gonna kill her like he killed Mora. He didn't say he was gonna do whatever things he did to Mora sexually or anything weird like that. That, if you're some kind of weird psychotic, that makes sense if you're a weird psychotic. I don't think it makes sense in any way to tell
mm,
someone you're gonna
I'm
kill
gonna
them.
kill
How is
you.
what does that have to do with eroticism?
I'm thinking she did something like weird, funny, or trying to insult him, or like trying to
Oh,
test.
and she left it out of the story, so we don't have that context.
Like, man, you're just a this that, and then he grabs her and I'm gonna kill you
Or
like
what
I
if he
did
said,
Mora.
or what if she said, "I'm gonna tell your friend about this because she's going out with Bill's friend
Yeah,
and they're going to cheat, but and she could if she threatened him with that, maybe he could have got pissed off, yes. But I'm saying if this story is true and unprovoked, if they're just sitting in silence driving and then all of a sudden at a stop sign, he just reaches over, grabs her and says, "I'm going to kill you like I killed Mora." That's complete insane lunatic behavior.
yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm not
I wish I had a recorder because that would
I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, I think it might be closer to the truth. If she's crazy enough to want to go to the hotel with him and continue to the hotel even after he did that, maybe you're right. Maybe she did say or do something that pissed him off really bad, and he said that. But what's the connotation of that? Does that mean he really killed Maura, and when he gets really pissed off, he mentions it? Or did he just make that up if he really said that, just to get her to be scared because he's kind of crazy? Because I
I,
get,
I like that last part. Maybe I don't know, something weird was going on, and he had to say something that,
yeah, I can see that. If he's kind of a
like,
weird guy, if he's a
yeah,
weird, controlling guy, he could have just said that to make her scared. But, or if
yeah,
she threatened to tell the friend about what they were doing, I could maybe.
yeah.
All right. Well, James Renner actually posted audio interviews with two women. So this is Washington, D.C., 2011.
Damn.
These two women, in their own voices, below is a summary. 2 years ago, I learned that Bill lost his job at Ray Group International in 2011 after a woman alleged that he sexually assaulted her in the office one night. This woman says his aggression towards her began before that, when she was going up the escalators on the metro one morning. Someone jogged up beside her and pushed her down. Luckily, fellow commuters caught her before she could tumble to the bottom, but her dress was ripped. She looked up and saw Bill at the top of the escalators. Later, when he assaulted her, he began saying that it was him who pushed her down that day, as in her words, the humanity in his eyes went away and he became robotic in the attack. What do you think about that? That's pretty sick. The humanity in his eyes went away. That's her description of the incident.
That's pretty descriptive. That's pretty some sick shit.
That's disturbing.
The humanity in his eyes. Oh man,
Yeah, that's messed up.
that's
Yeah.
that's that's really weird. That's like kind of like really detailed and like descriptive of emotional content that she experienced. It's kind of crazy.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So they were willing to go on audio record in these interviews. And yeah, so either they're being paid a lot of money to do this by someone who has it out for Bill, or they're telling the truth, or they could possibly be, I guess something else I thought of, if Bill is involved in some kind of weird psyop and these women think that that was the truth and they were brainwashed to believe that, or is that a bridge too far, Maxwell? Is that too outlandish? Is that outside of the realm of possibility?
Mm, I don't remember what you said.
If they're all part of it, if these women are part of an experiment, a psyop that Bill, so they
Yeah.
believe what they're saying is true, even if it's not,
Ah, I see. Um, yeah.
or what they're saying is true. So, or the reason they're lying is that they simply don't like him, or maybe he turned them down and they're pissed off, or he stole money from them. I mean, there's so many different variables. If he did something immoral or bad to them that they can't prove and they're trying to get back at him this way, even if it's not true, but he did something really bad to them, so it's not like he's a real good guy. Or maybe he is a good guy and it's one of these other incidents. We really don't know. So last month, another woman contacted me about her encounter with Bill in the fall of 2011. She was working as a bartender at the time. She hooked up with Bill one night. The sex started consensual, but quickly progressed to choking. He wanted to hear her gasp for breath. She described the lack of emotion in his eyes. After it was over, she says he was threatening, "This never happened." What do you think? James Renner really seems to be painting this picture of nothing in the eyes, no emotion, no humanity, because he's saying that this bartender repeated this, the lack of emotion in his eyes. What do you think, Maxwell?
Um, I'm thinking. Well, this is audio recording.
I probably met him around 2009. I don't know the exact time. I was working at Majestic in Old Town Alexandria, and I became a full-time bartender around late 2008, early 2009. So I'd seen them, Bill and his wife Allison, from the time that I started there, and then got to know them more as I became a bartender. You get to know people over time, sharing little bits of information. So, like, I knew that he was married, and I knew that she was from Oxford. they really liked gin cocktails, and I like gin too, so I always made sure that I had gin cocktails to offer them when they came around, and would tell them about the specials that we had going on. It was a Prohibition-era bar, so they liked nice cocktails. She drank less than him. He drank a lot more. He was always friendly, but never overtly friendly, I guess you could say. The night that I too have trouble calling it a version of assault, because I didn't think of it like that for a long time. I did take ownership of my own actions, and it just felt like I had done something wrong. But I guess the evening that you could consider what happened a version of assault, he was alone. Well, he wasn't alone. He was by himself, as in he wasn't with Allison, his wife. He was with another friend whose face I can't remember. I have no idea what his name is. But they were at the bar early on, so I came on around 5 o'clock that evening. I know now, through looking back, that it was October 4th of 2011. And he came in early, 5:36, before the dinner rush, and I think he had dinner. I can't remember, but I know there were lots of cocktails. I know it seemed like he was celebrating something. And that was the night that he was more interested in me than any other night before. So he was asking me a bunch of questions. He was asking me about school. He was asking me about my degrees. He was asking me, I told him I was a runner also, and I think somewhere along the lines we got onto the conversation of my Jeep. I drove a Jeep Wrangler, and he said, "Let me drive your Jeep." And I was like, "You can't drive a stick." And he's like, "Let me drive your Jeep." And so I called his bluff, and I stuck my keys on the counter, and he took them, and my car was parked out front of the restaurant, and there was a big glass window in front of the restaurant so I could see it. And I said, "I'll fine you if you fuck with my Jeep." Those were my words. And he kind of smirked and went out there, and I saw him back my car up and grind gears and then drive off with it. So I was nervous because he'd been drinking a bunch, and I honestly hadn't expected it to happen, so my bluff was called. But he came back within 5 or 10 minutes and parked it there and was all smiles and stuff like that.
And there were texts going on at the time?
There weren't texts at that time. Okay. When I contacted you about my story, I had completely forgotten that he'd been writing notes on beverage napkins the whole night. And I have them, if you want to see them later. But he'd been writing notes about it. He wanted my phone number, and I guess this was his way of having a conversation with me illicitly without his friend knowing. And so he asked for my phone number, and I didn't give it to him the first, maybe even the second time he asked, but eventually I did give it to him. I think he gave me his phone number eventually on a piece of napkin. And so that's when I texted him with my number, and he said, he asked if I would like to have a drink with him later, and I said, sure. So they were there, I guess, up until closing point. The restaurant closed at 10. I think it was a weekday, so it closed at 9:30. It was like a Wednesday or a Thursday. That's what I feel. We can look back at the calendar at some point. So he said, "We're going to Murphy's, which is a bar down the street, and it stays open late." And he's like, "Would you like to meet us there?" And I said, "Sure," because he'd been asking me about he asked me if I was married, and I said, "Technically yes, but I'm not with my husband anymore." And he asked me why, and I just said, "I'm not a good person." And because what are you going to do? Explain it to a relative stranger? And my marriage had ended. My ex-husband moved back to Montana, and I was not in a good place, and I did a lot of bad things, and part of it was Bill. So I had just said I'm a bad person. I think that enticed him, quite honestly. Like, looking back at it, I think the fact that I was it came out easily to say it. So anyway, he asked if we could meet later, and I said yes. He left, he paid, they left. I was closing the bar and stocking wine, or at least getting my list together, and I had a big black crate in my hands, and I was getting ready to walk down the stairs. There was a window here to the street, and there was the bar area, and then you'd go down here, and you'd go downstairs to the wine cellar. So as I'm going down to the wine cellar, I hear a knock at the door at the front of the restaurant, and it was Bill, and he was not with his friend. I guess he'd been smoking a cigarette around the corner. And he knocked on the door, and he was smiling, and so I unlocked it, and I opened it up, and he came in, and then he closed the door behind him, and And he locked it, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm stocking wine. I'll text you when I'm done." It wasn't the first time I'd let people who were regulars into the restaurant after hours, but just, for a small amount of time. I thought he was going to ask me a question. We were going to see each other later, so that's why I let him into the restaurant. And he said, "I can help." So I kind of was like, okay, and just kind of grinned and walked in front of him down the steps, and halfway through the steps he stopped me. He was behind me, he put his hands on my shoulders, and he said, "How bad of a person are you?" And I just kind of grinned, and that's when he pressed himself against me, pulled me back and pressed himself against me, and I said, "I have to stop wine." And so we did. I walked down the stairs, and then he told me to put the black crate down, and I did. And then he, since still behind me, had me walk towards the men's bathroom. The women's bathroom was at the very end of the hall. The men's bathroom was right before that. And I opened the door to the bathroom and went in first, and then he was behind me, and he locked the door. And so he was up against the wall, or up against the door, and I was in front of the counter, and he was just like, I don't know if he said, "How bad of a person are you?" when we were on the steps, or if he said it when he was there, but he ended up picking me. I was against the counter of the bathroom, and he came in front of me, and he picked me up. I was smaller then, and put me on the counter of the bathroom, and he said, "This is your fault." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "I've been staring at your necklace all night, and it fits just right perfectly between your breasts." And he's like, this is all your fault. That was the conversation that was happening. And then he started to kiss me, and I kissed him back. But it was really weird. And I think we were there for a few minutes, and I said, "My manager's upstairs counting my bank. I can't be back here. I have to count the bank." So he was like, "Okay." And so he backed off, and we went upstairs, and I said, "I'll text you in a little bit." Because I told you, and I wasn't an unwilling participant in this. I knew he was married, and I kind of pushed it out of my mind, but I knew what was happening. And so I met him at Murphy's after that, and I had a drink or two, and they were drunk, he and his friend had many cocktails that night. I don't remember if they ate. I'm sure they ate something. But meeting them at Murphy's, I was relatively sober. That was my first beer. I had, I think, 2 beers while I was there. So I offered to give him a ride home because he lives in my neighborhood, 2 blocks from me. Or at the time, 2 blocks from me. So he said sure, and we walked back up to my Jeep. I guess he said bye to his friend, or his friend left early or something. I can't remember. We walked back up to my Jeep and got in it and started driving towards Slater's Lane. And he reached over and he started unbuckling my belt and unbuttoned my pants and put his hand in my pants. And
this was
in the Jeep
as you were driving?
Yeah, as I was driving.
It wasn't at a stoplight or anything.
I mean, maybe it started at a stoplight, but it was 5 minutes between my restaurant and work, or in my apartment at the time. So yeah, I know we went in through the side entrance of my apartment building, and he came into my apartment, and I don't remember much fanfare or anything like that. I remember asking him if he had cheated on his wife. I think it was as we came into my apartment. I said, "Have you cheated on Allison before?" And he said, "Not since we've been married." So that was that, and we had sex. I remember some of the comments he made. Oh, he likes to choke women. That was the scariest part of it, is that from that moment he entered my apartment, he put his hand on my neck, and it stayed there the whole time. And he never overtly choked me to the point of passing out, but he choked me enough that I would stop breathing, and he liked that. That was when I started to really become uncomfortable with the look in his eye. It was more of a power struggle than it was of pleasure or any other version of that. It was very conscious that he wanted to choke me, and I think that's why I'm reading into some of it later, which I shouldn't do, but maybe that's why he liked it when I said I wasn't a good person. anyway, he choked me the entire time we had sex, and at the end of it, he got up and it was like nothing happened. He went to my bathroom, he cleaned up, he came back out, no smiles, stoic. And I was like, do you want to go have a cigarette outside the apartment? And he said yes. So we did, and as soon as he lit his cigarette, he said, this never happened. And I said, sure. Or this never happened, right? And I said, sure. He's like, you really aren't a good person, are you? And I said, no. And he's like, I'm going to go that way, which was pointing up to his house. You're going to go that way. I said, yes. He said, all right, have a good night. And that was like 2 or 3 in the morning or something like that. So that was the only time we'd seen each other outside of work. The only time we ever had a physical encounter.
Did you ever see him again?
Yeah, many times. He came back into the restaurant often. I think within a week or 2 he was back at the restaurant. And the first time he was there with a buddy.
Did he say anything?
No, not at all. It was like it never happened. And quite honestly, that was fine with me because I didn't want to think about it happening either. I was like, that was a stupid choice. That was a really big mistake. So no, none of it. It never happened again. But he started paying with cash after that, which I thought was weird. Because in my head, I'm like, how can you be out till 3 o'clock in the morning and your wife doesn't know where you are? So anyway, I'm just thinking about all this stuff, but people who don't want to be noticed always pay with cash. Actually, I will say that the first time he came back, instead of tipping me egregiously the way he had before, he always, tipped a ton. On card and on cash afterwards, or in cash afterwards. And this time he left me, an exactly 20% tip on the check, and I was like, you're a piece of shit. So that was the first time, and that was just with a buddy of his, and they were only there for 1 or 2 drinks, and they left. And then he came back again around Christmas or New Year's with Allison, and I was mortified, and pretended like nothing had happened, and I just said hi to her first, and he pretended like nothing happened. So that was pretty much it until I left. I never told him I was leaving.
What prompted you to get in contact with me?
I started reading the Missing Maura Murray blog. I'm into true crime podcasts. And
Did you know that Bill was connected to Maura Murray
not at all.
before this?
I had no idea who he was. I had no idea what he did. He was just a person that came into the restaurant. I figured most of my clients, or not clients, but the clientele at the restaurant were affluent. So it didn't surprise me that he probably had some upstanding job and he dressed well and everything. So, but anyway, I was just listening to the Missing Maura Murray podcast, and I think I was maybe 3 or 4 or 5 episodes in, and Googling the people in the case so that I could try to get it in my mind's eye and understand all that was going on with it. And I Googled Billy, Missing Maura Murray, and then it popped up with his picture. Or I can't remember if it popped up with Bill Rausch. I didn't know his last name even. I had no idea what his last name was. But his picture came up, and I was like, whoa. I recognized him, but he didn't have a beard when I knew him. So it was... I looked through a few more pictures. I looked at a couple links. I found his Facebook page, and I looked through the pictures, and then I saw his wife, Allison. So I knew it was him.
And people, and I know I had this going through my mind after you contacted me. It's like, well, maybe it's some other Bill. Maybe it's some other Allison. And so I reached out to Bill, and he said, no, of course that never happened, but you kept the napkins.
I do, right there.
And on the napkin is his cell phone number, which is Bill Rausch's cell phone number. It is his handwriting. What prompted you to keep?
I keep everything.
It's very smart.
I write about everything that happens to me, and in that entry, I'm an emotional, intuitive person, so I just like to write it out, feel it out. I'm much better at writing than I am at speaking. It helps me cope with my feelings, and all that I wrote was Bill, with a line on either side of his name and the date, and then I stuck those 2 napkins. I taped them in there.
All right, so what do you think? So that was her words. There's a lot of details there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities with the stories too, like the hand on a neck thing. He seems to have, if this is true, that seems to be one of his things to just have his hand.
He's probably, I don't know. He's probably just, I don't know. He's a choker.
You
So,
think these
a
stories?
lot of it sounds sick, but a lot of girls get turned on by that shit. They want to get fucking choked and get told that they're gonna get like fucking hurt and shit. I don't know. It's
Are you
just
talking about
crazy.
your ex-wife here or what?
Yeah, you know how it is.
Not quite. I've never been married, but
But
um,
and just I I don't know. Like I don't know. I think it's just pushing the eroticism envelope over.
you're chalking this up as normal, Maxwell?
This is just my guess. I just think yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's kind of sick sometimes, but he's just pushing it too hard, I guess.
So she saved these napkins, proving that Bill Rausch did give her her number, and there's some validity here. She saved these napkins, and Renner actually posted photographs. So, and Renner asked Bill Rausch, actually, in their communications back when he was still getting back to James Renner. He asked, "Did you meet a woman at the Majestic Bar in 2011 and choke her during sex? Did you tell this woman to never talk about it?" His response is no. "Did you find Maura in New Hampshire?" His response was no. "What was the nature of the conversation with Sarah Alfieri?" "I have no recollection of a conversation with Sarah Alfieri." You gotta like the way he phrases his answers. "I have no recollection."
It's like almost like Maxwell Powers and shit.
But regarding these women who made these who came forward with their stories, I don't know. There's a lot of little details in the accounts. It's I don't know. What do you think? You think they're being truthful?
Yeah, I mean they have nothing like there's no incentive to gain, right? Like there's nothing there.
Unless they got paid off, or unless Billy turned them down, or he did something else bad to them that they don't want to say, so they made up the story about him. About they made up this particular story because I don't know. He did something else really bad to them.
Or they fell in love and they want revenge because he's dumped her or some shit.
Or maybe I don't know. I came up with the stole money thing. I don't think that's true, but I don't know. Something that we don't know. He did something else that they don't want to say, so they made up this instead to get back at him. I mean, there's different scenarios here. If he's innocent of what they say, he could be guilty of something else that they don't want to say, or he's innocent. So, or someone paid the, or or they made it up and nobody paid them to say that because they just got turned down or they don't like him. Who knows what the answer is? But there's a lot of variables if they're not telling the truth. But you seem to buy their
Yeah.
stories, right?
Um, I don't know. I mean, they, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's just there's nothing to lie or I'm leaning to believing.
Okay, so he updated this with a fourth woman. Another woman came forward yesterday. She and Bill had a brief relationship in 2006. "I'm not surprised to hear all of this," she said. "He was a pathological liar." He spoke about Maura Murray only once by saying he had a girlfriend who had passed, but they were broken up at the time. She describes Bill as being extremely pushy, obsessive, arrogant, and controlling. She said even his friends at Fort Sill called him Billy Liar. Okay, so this is an interesting story. So she's saying he was a pathological liar, and he said that he and Maura were broken up at the time she went missing. Now, there's been a lot of speculation that they broke up in the days prior, which is why he was going crazy with the phone calls and all that. And then some situation happened and they broke up. Now, if this fourth woman is telling the truth, he actually told her they were broken up, or they weren't, and he's just lying about that as well. She's also saying that his friends called him Billy Liar. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, if he's involved in psyops, I mean, I don't know. All right, third update. May 8th, 2018, a fifth woman has come forward. Here is her story. "I spent one night with Bill when we were both working in politics in Ohio in 2008, and he was violent and degrading towards me. We were at a bar with other political staffers one night when he sent me one text saying that he wanted to go home with me, and a second one that said, 'I want to break you.'" That's kind of weird. I'm getting flashbacks to Rocky 4 with Ivan Drago saying, "I must break you."
How many? So how many girls are there so far as reporting this?
This is the fifth woman.
Damn, dude, that's too much. I mean, and that's a lot to pay off. I mean, did they like live scattered across, like?
Yeah, this one was in Ohio. The other one was in
That's
DC.
just I mean, even paying off that meant like 5 girls. That's kind of like it's too. I'm not saying it's
Yeah,
too
we got
complicated. I mean,
Oklahoma.
it's a
Yeah, we
good.
got Oklahoma, DC, Ohio. Yeah, they're all over.
Damn, that's crazy. Like, yeah,
Yeah, would you
it
ever
gives
send
it gives it gives credence when and social proof when you got like 5 of them.
would you ever send a woman a text, I want to break you?
I guess if you wanna, like if there was a conversation prior to that where like like something sexual like she like I could break you in half, and then she's like, oh, I want you to break me, and then you follow up with a text, I want to break
Well,
you and
here's
shit.
here's here's her story. I seriously thought the second one was a typo because I didn't know why someone would send that message in a flirty situation. He came
So like it should have been I want to f you, right, or some shit like that.
Well, she's saying that the connotation didn't warrant I want to break you. He just said I want to go home with you. And then the
I
second
see.
text, so it doesn't say she even responded to him. He sent two texts. One text saying he wanted to go home with her, and the second one just said I want to break you. Seems kind of random. So she said I seriously thought the second one was a typo because I didn't know why someone would send that message in a flirty situation. He came to my apartment after the bar, and it was clear that text was not a typo. The language he used and the demands he made were threatening and demeaning. We only spent the one night together, but I could see the potential for a regular abhorrent behavior towards women. The next day, I was shaken and decided to Google him, and that's when I saw the case about Maura. I was deeply disturbed and felt lucky that nothing more had happened to me. Bill was working at the ODP at the time, and I asked other women there if they knew about Maura or if any of them had witnessed this kind of behavior. They said Bill had been proactive in declaring innocence in Maura's case during his interview process. It was top in Google results, so he had to talk about it straight away in the interview vetting process. The women brushed Bill's relationships to Maura as a weird coincidence, but confirmed that he made inappropriate comments to women in the office and was often seeking sexual relationships. Follow up. There are other similarities between the stories from the women you interviewed on YouTube and my story, though. Firstly, looking back at that night, I felt he was testing me to see how violent he could get away with being without me resisting, and in my case, the answer was not very. He might have been less aggressive with me than other women who were continuously choked because he realized I was going to resist submitting to that and or because I had connections to political leaders and he feared retaliation. Also, when we were at the bar, Bill was passing notes on napkins with the bartender, trying to get her to write her number down. It was a manipulative game he was playing that she was not interested in, and he wouldn't let it go. He wrote a note to me also, which I've attached photos of. There were cheap paintings for sale at the bar, and I bought one. On the back, Bill wrote, F you, Captain Bill. The handwriting isn't identical to the napkin notes posted on your blogs that also start with FU. It's more of a cursive scrawl, but he wrote it. He also seemed to be blaming me for his inability to control himself, like the bartender in your story said, and I think that's what the FU meant. Like FU for triggering these urges in me. I thought it was kind of funny, but it did not seem so funny later on. Also, when Bill left my apartment, he said, This never happened. Just like the bartender in your story said. DC police are currently investigating this string of odd behavior. Subpoenas have been served for files relating to Bill's dismissals from Ray Group International, and witnesses have appeared before a federal grand jury. What do you think?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's all you got? All right, so yeah, a lot of women coming forward. If this is all true, I think Aaron Larkin originally stated that James Renner might have made all of this up, or other people have said that about James Renner, that he made up these witnesses.
Huh, that's interesting. But she had it recorded, huh? Or he had it recorded.
Well, yeah, and then he also posted napkins. I mean, we have here multiple details. Bill says this never happened. He uses napkins to try to get numbers or communicate with bartenders, and the whole choking thing. There's a couple of patterns here in these. Unless, of course, if someone had it out for Bill and he's paying everyone, that individual would probably leave little things like that to make it all look legit, right?
Yeah.
So we don't really know. So there's definitely evidence here. I mean, we have the napkin, we have there's evidence here. Let's continue. This is December 4th, 2018. Text exchange supports internal investigation at Ray Group International following alleged assault by Bill Rausch. I have obtained some evidence given to the grand jury in DC that is reviewing the sex assault allegations against Bill Rausch there. One piece of this is a text conversation between two coworkers of Bill's the first working day following the assault. He is accused of forcing himself on a woman in Michael Loudon's office on St. Patrick's Day in 2011 and also pushing this woman down the escalators in the metro. 10:33 a.m. Coworker 1. I basically told them that I don't feel safe, that Bill scares the crap out of me. I'm not the only one who feels this way, and that Mike has no idea what Bill is actually like. I explained some of his erratic behavior in the past. I told Mike that Bill puts on a show for him, that he's a completely different person when he crosses from the left side of the building to the right. Coworker 2 says, it's true. What did he say? Coworker says, I gave my personal opinion about his mental health. Coworker 2 states, oh good, you're my hero. Coworker 1, they're rethinking him coming in this afternoon and talking about security. I need to go for a walk, but I basically aired out Bill's dirty laundry. He's effing crazy and a sociopath and doesn't understand human emotion. But said differently, and I told them that while things people say today might sound a little far out, but that it's not female histrionics and that Mike, Alex, etc. need to understand that anything anyone states today is not just an opinion and not a situation being blown up or taken out of context, but completely accurate and true. And basically that they better listen and not discount anything anyone says today. I also pointed out that Bill hates strong, intelligent women and that he has to assert his power over them, and now I need to take a long walk. P.S. We're going to be sent home, I think, after we talk to Alex. I'm thinking movie party at Victims so she's not by herself. And I'm guessing Victims was the victim's name. I literally just told the head of our company that he has no idea what the real Bill is. Coworker 2, you were awesome. Thanks. So these are two other coworkers, not the victim, talking about Bill.
Okay.
Following the investigation at Ray Group, Bill was barred from the office during the day and removed from his job shortly after. He did not list Ray Group on his LinkedIn page for several years. Whatever happened in that office, one thing is clear, his female coworkers were frightened of him. You know what's weird? I think this whole time Aaron was saying that James Renner was making all this up or whatever. There was no grand jury. Remember all that?
Yeah.
And I don't believe she's issued any statement retracting that or anything. Like, I think she just kind of ignored it after it was proven true. But so what do you think? You think these other coworkers, because now if this is all made up, that means these coworkers would have had to be paid off as well, right?
Yeah.
Which again, if it's somebody with deep pockets in the military, I mean, that's not a problem. I mean, how much are you gonna, if people are, I mean, you can probably get them to do it for a couple $1,000, right? Just text this and this.
Yeah. And he did
Unless
work in that
unless they have like
PSYOP task force or some shit.
unless they have like a year's worth of those text messages from a whole bunch of different women, that's going to be a lot tougher, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get a little bit more recent. April 3rd, 2019. A warrant for Bill Rausch's arrest on felony sex abuse has been issued, and James Renner posted the actual bench warrant. Two sources confirmed that prosecutors have secured an indictment for Bill Rausch in D.C. on a charge of felony sex abuse, and a warrant has been issued for his arrest. This is the culmination of a year and a half of testimony and evidence gathering related to an incident that occurred in the office of Ray Group International in 2011, news which I broke in the epilogue of my book, True Crime Addict. Since this allegation was made public, several more women have come forward to me, claiming Bill Rausch was abusive towards them sexually. You can read their stories here. Bill Rausch has been serving in the U.S. Army at Camp Lemonnier, where he has been in charge of a propaganda campaign, including dropping leaflets and monitoring Twitter accounts of enemies of the state. He is due to return to the States this week, but this arrest warrant may speed things up. Two of Bill's victims, whom I spoke to in D.C., are asking police to look into his whereabouts in the days after Maura Murray disappeared. I believe Maura was traveling in tandem with another driver and likely made it to a cabin or a condo the night of the accident. It's possible her death occurred later in the week. Update: former co-workers of Bill Rausch from Camp Lemonnier have filed complaints against him with the Inspector General's office. One soldier alleges that Rausch had him transferred out of East Africa after he learned of the allegations of sex assault against Rausch in DC. The other soldier is alleging harassment, abuse, and a toxic workplace. Here's an excerpt. July 2018, Rausch arrived and also immediately undermined my authority. Before he arrived into country, I did a preliminary search on his background and discovered he was being investigated by a federal grand jury in Washington, D.C. for sexual assault. I found this very concerning, but had faith in the system. When we finally met, Rausch and I agreed that I would remain the J39 director until I went on pass. But on August 29th, 2018, and be the outgoing director deputy when I returned. However, it was as if I had no authority at all with Rausch in country. Rausch and his team treated me with no respect. They would just disobey my orders, such as to show up on Saturdays or review products. I didn't understand it at the time, but believe it was because of their close relationship with Rausch. I jokingly referred to it as the cult of Bill, because they did everything he said with no question. It was strange, but they had an unquestioning loyalty to Rausch and did whatever he told them. Late July, I printed off a couple articles about the investigation in Rausch by a writer named James Renner and put them on my desk mid-July, but discovered them missing. I didn't think much of it at the time, but I think Rausch or one of his team took them off my desk. I noticed there was a deterioration in our relationship from there. Kind of weird. What do you think?
That's okay.
That's all you got?
I forget who's talking. Some dude with a.
Military personnel alleging that Rausch is just crazy, toxic, undermined their authority, and just caused problems in the workplace. One of his co-workers from Camp Lemonnier in East Africa
Took it and disappeared, and then he has no idea where the fuck it is, and then it's all fucked up.
Okay, there's only one little part about papers that he printed out from James Renner. That was only one small part of it. Probably the most irrelevant part.
Oh, it's from James Renner.
Max Alarmy.
I
coworker.
didn't know. I thought he was writing a fucking journal and shit.
A co-worker of Billy Rausch's at Camp Lemonnier said that Billy undermined his authority, caused problems in the workplace, toxic work environment. You don't get it?
Gotcha. He's talking about Billy Rausch and he's creating a toxic environment.
Yes. Does that not make sense?
Yeah, and then I don't get the rest after that.
He looked up Bill Rausch and found what James Renner wrote about him. He printed some papers out, left them on his desk, and one day they were missing. He suspects that Bill Rausch or one of his team took the papers, and that things got worse from there.
Like between him and Billy Rausch.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now that you got that all deciphered, what does that tell you?
Well, what kind of bad is it? Like they fucking stopped talking? Like what the fuck?
He doesn't say. He just said the relationship deteriorated. What difference does it make? It got worse after.
It got worse because he was feeling awkward, and then he was probably standoffish. I don't fucking know. Like I don't know. I don't really know the details of that.
Do you need to? It's just someone. The details are irrelevant. His coworker said this about him. Either it's true or not true. If it's true, He's basically saying that Billy Rausch is just not a good guy.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know where the fuck the paper, who took the papers and shit. It could not be Billy Rausch. It
Okay,
could be
forget
some
about the
fucking.
papers. That's the least relevant detail about this whole thing.
So that was the most relevant.
That Bill Rausch doesn't obey orders, causes a toxic work environment, and has a cult-like group of people that obey everything he says.
What kind, what kind of things doesn't he obey?
He shows up on different days and does stuff he's not supposed to do just because he feels like it. That's what I got from it. There's not a lot of info there, Maxwell. There's not. The point is not the specific details. I don't know why you're focusing on that.
Oh yeah, it's kind of messed up. It's kind of messed up, just the overall vibe of that story.
Yeah, I mean, James Renner is really not making Bill look good here if this is all true. All right, Thursday, April 11th, 2019. Bill Rausch's indictment. Here's the indictment filed in the D.C. Superior Court, which provides some context for the crime Bill Rausch is charged with. He did not show up for his scheduled arraignment today because he has not yet left Camp Lemonnier in East Africa. Word is the Army is having issues with getting a flight out, though they do have the option of sending him on a private airline, which they have not done. The hearing has been rescheduled for next week. The way it works in DC, Bill will show up in the morning, be arrested, and processed through the police department, then escorted to the hearing. He does not have to post bail for this charge, so he will likely return home after the hearing. This felony indictment is very serious, and Bill faces up to 10 years if convicted. There are 4 more women who have alleged harassment and abuse, but those cases can no longer be prosecuted. You can read their stories here. Also, the victim in the felony case also claims Bill pushed her down the escalator in the metro, a clear and frightening attempt to harm her, but that case is beyond the statute of limitation. The victims are asking the New Hampshire State Police to review Bill Rausch's whereabouts after he arrived in New Hampshire to search for Maura in 2004. I believe Maura was traveling in tandem with another driver and made it to her destination the night of the accident. If that is what happened, she may have been harmed later in the week and nobody has an alibi. At least 2 soldiers from Camp Lemonnier have also filed complaints with the Inspector General against Bill Rausch in the last few weeks, alleging Rausch harassed them and abused them and created a toxic work environment. Okay, update. The Washington, D.C. paper published this article, April 11th, 2019. Army major indicted in D.C. for alleged 2011 sexual abuse incident. The victim reported the alleged attack to police after her assailant's name appeared in unfounded theories in an unrelated cold case. And she actually took a picture right before this incident with Billy Rausch and with Billy Rausch in the picture. U.S. Army Major Bill Rausch has been indicted on 1 count of felony third-degree sexual abuse for an alleged after-hours attack on a subordinate female employee in a downtown D.C. office building. Rausch, who is currently deployed in Africa, has been a prominent advocate for veterans, including as the former executive director of Got Your Six, a nonprofit that empowers those who previously served. Rausch also authored the foreword of The Fire Within, Shedding Light on Trauma, a book that compiles stories of trauma associated with military life. He graduated from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. Rausch did not respond to messages seeking comment. An Army spokesperson writes in an emailed statement that they are aware of the indictment and will continue to review the information related to the case as it becomes available. The spokesman declined to comment further. For the victim, Kate Pattison, the indictment brings an end to some of the uncertainty and anxiety that's hovered over her life for the past 8 years. Pattison first went to the police the day after Rausch tried to force himself on her in the empty office of Ray Group International, where they both worked in 2011. Pattison was 22 at the time, working her first job out of college, and Rausch was a superior. So again, I believe Aaron and some other people were saying this was all made up because there was no police report. And so now this article, the Washington City paper, is saying that there was a report. The female Metropolitan Police Department's officer's first response back then, according to Pattison, was, "Why didn't you report this last night?" It took a long time for me to call myself a victim or to associate it with the word victim, and going to the police again symbolized that, she tells City Paper. Especially after being made to feel like I wasn't one the first time I went, I didn't want to fight anybody for that status. It wasn't until 2017 that Pattison, now 30, went back to the police prompted by a phone call from a man researching a separate missing persons case from 2004 in New Hampshire. It took about a year and a half from the time she reported the incident to police a second time to when Rausch was indicted. I wonder who that author is. They didn't say, oh yeah, they will say his name. Pattison became aware of Rausch's connection to the disappearance of 21-year-old Maura Murray through a coworker soon after the alleged attack in D.C. Rausch was Murray's boyfriend at the time she went missing. Murray's disappearance remains unsolved and has attracted a cult-like following online, where internet sleuths comb over details of the police investigation and peddle unfounded theories. Are they talking about us, Maxwell?
Yeah.
There are Reddit threads, podcasts, and entire blogs dedicated to Murray's case, one of which is run by author and reporter James Renner. Renner's book about his obsession with Murray's disappearance, True Crime Addict: How I Lost Myself in the Mysterious Disappearance of Maura Murray, published in 2016. He also participated in a documentary series that aired on the Oxygen Network in 2017. Rausch was stationed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma on the night Murray disappeared, and has adamantly denied any involvement. He said on Twitter that he was granted leave to search for Murray after he found out she'd gone missing. Yet Renner has held on to his own unproven theory that eliminates Rausch's alibi, which he has written about on his blog. Renner says multiple women who've read the blog and heard him speak about the case on a podcast contacted him to describe Rausch's erratic and at times violent behavior. City Paper has not independently confirmed those accounts, but upon hearing stories of Rausch's alleged behavior with other women from Renner, Pattison says she felt a responsibility to report her incident to the police again. She says this is what happened. After work on St. Patrick's Day 2011, Pattison and some of her coworkers at Ray Group left a little early for happy hour. It was unseasonably warm, Pattison remembers, so they left their jackets in the office. After a drink or two at the bar near the White House, the group returned to the office to retrieve their coats. On the way out, Pattison got locked between the two sets of doors, and Rausch, who was still in the office but did not accompany the group to the bar, came to let her out. She says Rausch asked her to follow him into an office and that he needed to talk to her. Once inside, she remembers Rausch closing the doors behind them and laughing. He asked her if she remembered the day she came into the office after having been pushed down the metro escalator at McPherson Square. Pattison did remember. A few months prior, someone shoved her down the long metro escalator on her way to work. Someone broke her fall, and she says she looked up and saw Rausch turning the corner at the top. She confronted Rausch about the incident that morning, but he denied any involvement. In the office alone, though, Pattison says Rausch admitted that he pushed her. Then, she says, he grabbed her shoulders, turned her around, and forced her head down on the conference table. Pattison pushed him away, but Rausch pushed her down to the table again, she says. I just wasn't contemplating what was happening, she says. I pushed him up and he pushed me down again and kept asking him what he was doing. And I kept asking him what he was doing. And he would smile or laugh and kept grabbing at my dress. By that time, another coworker had walked into the office and was searching for Pattison, calling out her name. Pattison let out a noise and Rausch ducked behind a desk. This never effing happened, she remembers him saying. Man, he says that a lot, doesn't he? 3 people who Pattison told about the attack soon afterward have confirmed her account to City Paper. Okay, so it looks like James Renner is vindicated yet again. We've had this conversation many times on the Mindshock podcast. It seems for all the haters that James Renner has and John Smith has, both of them seem to be vindicated every step of the way, as at the very least, reporting what was said to them accurately. Whether or not it's true, that's another matter. But they can't be accused of making stuff up because these other people who Patterson told about the attack right after confirmed it to Washington City paper. Two of those people, who were Patterson's coworkers at the time, described Rausch's demeanor towards women in the office, and especially toward Patterson, as degrading and condescending. Patterson says Rausch once told her it was unprofessional for women to wear pants in the office and said that I should wear skirts or dresses. Ariana Gordillo, who lived with Patterson, says Patterson was in a state of shock when she arrived home that evening and described the attack. I remember her looking very distraught and very pale, Gordillo says. The indictment in D.C. has no connection to Maura's disappearance. Although Murray disappeared 15 years ago, law enforcement officials in New Hampshire are still investigating. Earlier this month, New Hampshire state troopers and FBI agents searched a home near the spot Murray was last seen, but found, quote, no evidence of human remains, end quote, the Boston Globe reported. New Hampshire State Police declined to comment on potential suspects. Rausch's arraignment in D.C. Superior Court was originally scheduled for this morning, but was postponed until April 17th. What do you think, Maxwell?
Everything's cool.
So now, I mean, it really seems like Renner's not making this up. So Renner's delusional and insane and making all this stuff up, as Aaron alleges, is off the table now. So it seems like either these women are lying, or someone's paying them to do so, or they're telling the truth. So it's not really looking all that good for Billy. I'm going to float this right here too before I forget. It is possible Billy was a nice guy and he had nothing to do with Maura's disappearance, but it traumatized him so badly that it kind of made him crazy, and some or all of these allegations are true. But it doesn't mean he did anything to Maura. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, back to Renner's blog, update 2. Here's the official statement from the Army unit Bill was part of. We are aware of an incident involving Major William Rausch. The Army sets high standards for all of its soldiers and demands adherence to the Army values and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. This incident is the subject of an ongoing police investigation, and it would be improper for us to comment. We will continue to review the information related to this case as it becomes available. All further questions should be directed to Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. Update 3. Bill Rausch appeared in court today, April 23rd, for his arraignment. If they followed standard protocol, he would have first turned himself into the police next door to the courthouse, where they would have arrested and processed him through their system before leading him through an underground walkway to the court for his arraignment. Rausch is set to return to court May 17th for a status hearing. He is being represented by a D.C. attorney skilled with serving defendants who are in the military. He was released after the hearing today and will remain free. In D.C., they usually don't issue bail even for felonies. That's kind of strange, isn't it? He is ordered to remain in the United States. Rausch faces 10 years in prison if convicted of sex abuse. He is also the subject of at least 3 separate complaints with the Inspector General's office for his actions and behavior when he was employed. On Renner's Facebook, he posted this on May 7th, 2019. Short update regarding Bill Rausch's indictment in D.C. this morning. No plea deal has been offered. He has hired a new female lawyer. The discovery process has begun, and there's a lot there, including evidence he was creeping his victim's LinkedIn page. There is also the possibility that evidence could still be tested for DNA. All right, Maxwell, so we went through the history of all these allegations against Bill Rausch by these separate women. We have quite a few women. There's a couple of details here that seem to be reoccurring that at least point to the possibility of corroboration. What do you think about all this?
It's interesting and disturbing. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how the women are scattered all across the country and they have similar stories. So I don't know what to think of it.
All the different places Bill worked and lived, yeah. It's bizarre. And then, of course, if they're true, I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch more stories about women who are too scared to come forward or don't want to, right? If they're true, if these stories are true, if there's a pattern of abuse here, and it's true, or none of them are true, and Billy, if he just has a really abrasive personality and causes some of these issues, and then maybe if he turned some of these women down, they made up the stories. But it is kind of strange how there's corroboration from coworkers, or maybe that incident is true and he was on drugs or drunk or something, and the other incidents aren't true. I don't know. But then we do have the napkins. I mean, there's a lot more than just a couple of words here. So it's definitely bizarre. It's bizarre. So another thing, some people are speculating that Bill requested emergency leave before Maura went missing. So here's a post a commenter made theorizing the only way I see this as possible is Billy already had put in for leave in desperation for some reason due to Maura's actions and his over the weekend. He made an ungodly amount of calls to Maura's friends. Maura wasn't really answering. To not call her dorm on Monday. Could he have put in for leave over the weekend, possibly for it to fall so close to Fred not finding out until Tuesday evening? Billy was there very early on a plane Wednesday. Seems awfully quick to have requested leave and be on a plane en route. Remember the 5 a.m.-ish weeping call on Wednesday? Billy was already on his way when he received this call. Leaves do take time from my understanding. I never really looked at this until lately, but it would appear Billy was en route possibly less than 12 hours after Fred found out. He would have requested leave, have it approved, taken the time to book a flight, pack a few things, drive to the airport, most require 2 hours prior, and be en route at 5 a.m. for the call when it came in. It does seem like a tight timeline. What do you think? Could he have requested leave before she went missing? And normally, you can't get emergency leave unless it's your spouse, not just a girlfriend, a college
Yeah.
girlfriend. And if it's happened before, and if a DUI walkaway isn't justified enough to get emergency leave, how could he get emergency leave before there was even an incident? Oh, my girlfriend's thinking about breaking up with me. I need emergency leave. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Or if he's Billy Liar and he made up an emergency story and said, "Oh, my girlfriend's got into a car accident and she's dying." Because she did get into a car accident Saturday night. Could he have requested emergency leave Saturday night? Or if he did talk to Maura Sunday morning from that phone call, whatever was said, he could have theoretically requested emergency leave then after that phone call. So a lot of unknowns here. Okay, I'm going to bring up something else here. In the Gary Lindsley article, Sharon Rausch made a statement that's very curious. We are convinced something happened at school and her Amherst friends know. Okay, so what we didn't specifically talk about in relation to this Sharon Rausch quote is where did this information come from? How would she know this? I can't think of any other way other than Billy. Because if Billy spoke to Kate Markopoulos, what information was exchanged that led Billy to possibly tell his mother that Maura's Amherst friends know something? So that leads me to believe that there might have been something said. There's a possibility that something was said between Billy and Kate Markopoulos. Would you find that a reasonable conclusion or what?
I don't know.
Maximum Army. All right, so let's round this out. So there's some theories out there that have mentioned that Erin Larkin knows Billy Rausch, since she ardently defended him without even knowing the real truth, unless she does know the truth and she's lying for him. Some people think that that's true. She also said that she never met Billy, but Billy was in the area. He bought a car from the dealership near UMass, which is also a weird story because why is he buying a car in Amherst? He lives in Ohio. He's stationed in Oklahoma. He's going to buy a car. I don't know. All these stories don't make any sense to me, but I'm not these people, so I don't know. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that Erin has seen Bill around, and if Bill knew Kate Markopoulos somehow, Possibly from a visit to campus, I don't know. But Kate Markopoulos is Aaron Larkin's big sis from track. And if Kate Markopoulos was somehow involved with Billy, Aaron could just be towing that line and covering for both of them. Especially if it's after the fact. Like, let's say Billy and Kate Markopoulos had something going on. How bad does that look? Maura goes missing. Her ex-boyfriend and her friend were cheating on her. I mean, it's kind of that kind of looks bad. But I mean, there's not a lot of motive for Aaron to become hoodwinked into this whole triangle of lies and cover-ups, unless Billy and Aaron had something going on as well. But that doesn't make any sense either, because then she'd be out to get him if that went south. So none of these theories that are being postulated online about the Aaron Larkin, Billy Rausch, Kate Markopoulos connections, none of them really make a lot of sense. But so we don't really know anything about any of that. You have any thoughts about that?
No.
What a shocker. Okay, as far as we know, Erin has not issued any statement at all about her being completely wrong about the grand jury, any indictments against Bill, police reports, all of this. She labeled all of this as delusional ramblings of a crazy James Renner. So, but the other thing, obviously, even if he's crazy, how does that mean he's wrong about anything or that any of his reporting is untrue? Again, another fallacy there. The logical fallacies know no bounds in this case. Any final thoughts on Billy Rausch, Maxwell? The allegations, the history of allegations, this pattern of behavior that seems to be reported, true or untrue, the pattern is there.
No, I'm good with what's presented.
Do you think Billy harmed Maura?
No.
Okay, that's interesting. So do you think he was trying to help her in that week after, and then he possibly met up with her? Because if he had talked to her on that Sunday call and then no calls for 4 days, that's kind of weird. Did he find her and help her? I'm leaving this option on the table because Billy Rausch might be the good guy here. And if he is the good guy, if Maura got wrapped up in some kind of CI or government situation, and Billy Rausch went against people in the government to help her and help her get away, and then because they're all involved in psyops, they're paying off all these people to kind of try to ruin Billy Rausch for helping Maura get away. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, anything's possible. The whole thing is bizarre, so...
Yeah, always more questions than answers in the Maura Murray case. Once again, if you enjoyed the podcast, feel free to donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, hit the like button and feel free to share it across social media platforms. Any questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions, theories, criticisms, insults, just leave them in the comments section. Like our Facebook page, you can also check us out, Twitter, Reddit, Patreon. Once again, we hope you enjoyed another episode of the Maura Murray series, and you have a lot to think about regarding Billy Rausch in relation to the bizarre and mysterious disappearance of Maura Murray. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
And Maxwell Powers.
Have a good night.